What up, players? It's Warboss Tay. Up in this mug, I've got this Forge World Resin Night Lord's Praetor here with the drum pack. I'm going to be painting him up to this standard from primer, and you're going to see every single step of the way, see how I did it if you want to replicate it yourself, or if you just want to have my video playing with whatever you are working on and painting. I'm glad to be here and keep you company for the next hour. Here we go! Hey, when you get a chance, visit holeinthewallhobbies.com. They buy, sell, and trade all manner of miniatures. And they also have an Instagram for you to follow with lots of great pictures of their inventory and their latest events. If you happen to be in the area in San Antonio, Texas, you can check the place out yourself. Tell Mike that Tay said, "What up?" So the first thing we do is we prime our miniature. I've got my miniature here primed in a nice medium gray. If you can't really tell, it's because the lights are shining down nice and bright. But from this gray, we're going to be painting Night Lord's blue over the entirety of the armor. So whatever you know is going to end up being that beautiful Night Lord's blue, just take a big enough brush, thin down that paint, because Night Lord's blue is a base color paint, so it's going to go on very thick, and we don't want it to get all gloopy. We want to get in all the cracks and crevices. What usually helps me to paint is having a handle on the dang thing, and that means using a painting handle like the one I've got here from Games Workshop, or just use something that your hand can easily wrap around. For years, I used a piece of cork from my local arts and crafts store, just a big old piece of cork that I put some poster tack or blue tack on the top of, and then I would just squish my model onto that piece of cork. I mean, you can see it in my older videos. It is as low tech as you can get, but it cost me something like $5 for the entire thing, the piece of cork and a whole packet of blue tack. Every time my poster tack would get dry and unusable, then I would just peel the thing off and put on a fresh wad of poster tack. It was my glory days. It was the glory days. All right, so use any kind of handle though that you can, like prescription pill bottles, paint bottles, old paint bottles, anything your hand can wrap around easily. Put some poster tack on top and make sure you secure your models. If you want to be painting for the long haul, like I am, years and years and years of painting, you don't want to be holding your models with your fingertips by the bases. That's a sure way to early onset rheumatoid arthritis and just all sorts of bad nerve damage to your fingers. You don't want to do that. So make sure your hand is easily holding onto a handle atop which your miniature will be affixed. So yeah, this Night Lord's blue, I love this. It's such a dark blue, but if you don't have this, you can use a Cantor blue and maybe add just a little bit of black paint to it to give it a very, very dark, deep shade. We don't want what I call we don't want a high elf blue. The high elf blue is like the Calidor sky, the very rich, beautiful, bright blue colors. We want a dark, dark blue. These guys are in midnight clad after all, which they will surely look like they are once we get the Nuln Oil on. But really, you just want to get a nice enough brush that you can really spread this paint out, and you don't want it to get too thick, too gloopy. Just get it in every single crack and crevice, which you'll be able to find all of them if you're using a handle, such as I am. Now I'm using a set of brushes, my favorite set of brushes, this Golden Maple set of brushes. I'm gonna link it below in the description. You've got a whole range of dry brushes, detail brushes, stipple dry brushes. It is fantastic, and it is the way that I'm able to get like my eyeballs and the lightning bolts you're gonna see later. I really can't paint without this set. It is fantastic. So you might have seen there, I've got a tub of black acrylic paint, and I got it like at Walmart for like $3. It's lasted me for a very, very, very long time, way longer than if I were to just be cracking open a new fresh pot, $7, $8 pot of Abaddon black every single time I want a simple black paint. So invest the like $4 into getting a giant tube of acrylic black paint. Remember, it has to be acrylic. That way it will match the rest of the paints that you're working with. But black, like I always say, black is black is black. So there's not going to be any differentiation of color. You just want a good, solid, strong black paint. And the cheaper the better, because it's one of the things you're going to be using the most of. I find that as I get older, players, I'm always looking for value and things that I can get, like, I don't want to say cheaply, but things that I can get for a good value to save my money and make my money work for me. All right, here we go. Necro Gold, Scale Colors Necro Gold. I'm going to put a link below in the description to the Scale Color Metal and Alchemy Gold Edition, because Necro Gold is just one of the many gold colors in this box that I really, really believe in. Scale Color makes some fantastic gold paint, and I'm going to be using this reference picture here for the Praetor just to remember, okay, where is all the gold? I've actually given my model a little bit of time, about an hour or so, for the Night Lord's blue to dry, but not too long. We want to keep the momentum going, so we're just going to get that Necro Gold, and look how beautiful it is. Necro Gold is like that quintessential evil, dark, rusted, I don't want to say rusted, evil, dark, tarnished gold. It looks almost like it's got a dark greenish tinge to it that makes it old and mysterious and spooky. It's like spooky gold. Spooky gold. Now, you compare that to something that's like a bright yellowish gold, like Retributor Armor, or something that has a nice deep red richness to it, like Balthazar Gold. There was an old color in Games Workshop's previous range called Dwarven Gold that was really nice, but yeah, Shining Gold, all those nice old Games Workshop Citadel paint range colors. What we've got now, Retributor Armor, Balthazar Gold, none of those golds would match what I want for the Night Lords here. Night Lords are evil, they're tainted, they're corrupted, they're not mutated, they're not corrupted by chaos in that way, but they are very, very bad. Even in the Horus Heresy, right after the Great Crusade, around the Great Crusade era, they were famous for just being bad dudes, like pretty much psychopaths in power armor. And it was bad enough when they were Terran born, when they were fighting for the Emperor, and they were like the whole Night Lord's Legion philosophy is to only engage in a fight when it's like absolutely certain you can win. Use a lot of hit and run and manipulative like terror tactics, they called them, and that's why they would flay their enemies and wear their skin even before they fell to chaos and Horus in the Horus Heresy. Well, they didn't fall to chaos, but even before they hooked up with Horus and they pledged themselves to the Heresy on the wrong side, they were very bad people. And so even here in the Horus Heresy, like one of my dreams is actually build armies and Horus Heresy armies that are comprised of Great Crusade era Terran born loyalists. So even all the bad legions, quote unquote, the bad legions, like the Night Lords, like I want to build a army of Terran Night Lords that understood what the mission was, you know, terror tactics to terrify their enemy into compliance, and unity through overwhelming force and terror tactics, and just scare them into following you. Like, I think that's really interesting when they worked for the good guys and they're obviously like so evil and bad, because it's really easy to say like, oh, I want to collect an evil army because I'm into, like, you know, I think it's interesting to feel the very evil army. But all this time I was yammering, I was painting the rims of the shoulder pads with that Necro Gold, and all of the areas that I could see were done in gold. Now we're getting onto the Iron Warriors silver, and I'm painting the biggest area first, which is this big chain glaive. Very cool to see one of these. You don't see too many of these double-handed chain weapons. So because they're all different, they've all got different aesthetics to them, how they were made, where like the exhaust ports and where the chain blades are and everything. So it's cool to see this honkin' double-handed weapon, chain weapon, that is really like almost off-balancing the miniatures profile. When you take a look at it, it is so big. All right, using more of that Iron Warriors. Iron Warriors is a nice dark silver color, which is perfect for like evil miniatures, right? So like the Night Lords, any kind of chaos or undead, I would use Iron Warriors as a base, and then maybe build up to Lead Belcher, or just put on the known oil, get it nice and dark and grimy with Agrax Earthshade, and then add on some highlights of Runefang Steel or Chainmail or what have you. Chainmail's an old color too. I think the equivalent now is called Ironbreaker. So he's got this chainmail little loincloth thing. So we're gonna easily paint that. He's also got this bolt pistol on his hip in like a little holster. I think the holster is supposed to be made out of like flesh. I think a bunch of this guy's armament is like flesh-based materials, but I've decided to use a different color just to give it some variation. And I think also the only colors that are different on my miniature to the Games Workshop official art and box cover is the holster for the bolt pistol and the handle of the chain weapon. Now you can see I'm picking out the chains. There's like a length of chain with a hook hanging from his waist. There is a belt buckle that has the Roman numeral 8 for the 8th Legion. Now there's a lot of silver bits on his jump pack here in the back, but it's just the piping. It's pretty simple to see what they are. So even if you don't have access to the artwork or the box cover, you can pretty simply find out where those pipes are. Just look for the silver, or just look for the pipes. That's what you paint silver. Anything that's covering the pipe or clamping them together, that would be colored in the Night Lord's blue. Continuing to the other side, there's a little bit of these turbine engine vents. Like not the vent itself, but the little ball structure with the piping. Okay, now we're moving on to some chains on his shoulder pad. I think there's a grenade hanging from his torso. There's that belt buckle with the Roman numeral 8 on it. Yeah, check out that brush set, because I mean, there's no way I could get into this with one of my older brushes. I had a bunch of like Army Painter and Games Workshop brushes. They worked well for me for a while, but I don't know, for some reason, I can't get into a lot of the detail that I used to be able to get into, the angles and everything. The bristles are just too long and the surface area is just too wide, but I can really get into the smallest areas with this Golden Maple set. Like 2 or 3 of the brushes in the set, there's like 10 brushes you get, like 2 or 3 of them are like so small and just really meant for the most insane detail painting. All right, a little bit more of that Necro Gold to paint the top of the spears here. I love the head option on this miniature. There's a variant where he's wearing the iconic bat-winged helmet, but I thought, you know, for the Praetor, the head looks so great. I think this is, did that say Xandri Dust? The head looks so great that I'm just going to, oh no, that's Rackard's flesh. I was just gonna use the head. It looks like he looks like Freddy Krueger. He's got this bad scarring all over his face that is just like so gross and hard to look at. So you got some bones. Rackard flesh is a great bone color for laying down the first color. It has great coverage and it goes on really smooth. In fact, we're going to be using this Rackard flesh on the crest here, on the chest, as well as on the shoulder Night Lord's symbol. Rakarth Flesh is one of my favorite paints from this iteration of the Games Workshop color range. I think it is one of the most versatile that you can use in just about every single paint scheme. It's my universal like first go-to color to do bone. So anytime I'm working on skeletons or anything that has bone elements to it, skulls, what have you, Rakarth Flesh is my go-to color. It also is great for highlighting other colors, like when you add it to browns, for example, Mournfang Brown, Steel Legion Drab, it can lighten it up. When you add it to skin tones, Acadian Flesh Tone suddenly gets like a nice highlight, and it's very crisp and clean without getting washed out as if you were to do it with a white color. So now I'm going to be using Mephiston Red. You could also use Corn Red to do the wings here, and you're going to create a nice deep rich red color. It doesn't matter if you don't have Corn Red. If you only have Mephiston Red, that's fine, because we're going to give the entire model a wash of Nuln Oil, which is going to tone everything down, make everything look a lot darker, give it some very nice shadows. And so if you don't have Corn Red, Mephiston Red is fine. And Mephiston Red is actually one of my other go-to colors. So if someone were to ask me what colors do I always have in my painting, on my painting table, it would be Rakarth Flesh, Mephiston Red, I think the entire range of brown colors. I'm going to use Doombull Brown now while I talk. Doombull Brown for the holster of the bolt pistol. I think you need to have Rakarth Flesh, Mephiston Red, Mournfang Brown, Dryad Bark, Steel Legion Drab, and then if you want to go the extra mile, you can go to XV88 and also Xandri Dust. All of those are the perfect colors that you can switch into and out of and use for leather belts, pouches, straps, and also you can use those colors to highlight those browns. So if I were to paint like a Mournfang Brown holster, then I would add some Xandri Dust or some Rakarth Flesh to my Mournfang Brown and just highlight the edges, and there you go. That's one of the best things about Warhammer painting in general, painting miniatures, is that you learn not really color theory per se, but you learn how to mix and match your colors and how to balance the colors on your models. And here I'm using the next color that I would definitely put into my traveling bag of essential paints. It's Bugman's Glow. Bugman's Glow is your flesh color. It's your base color for flesh. And I remember when they first switched over to this new paint range, I really missed the old Talarn Flesh. Talarn Flesh was a very pink, soft, like baby Caucasian color, and I thought it was perfect. I didn't think it needed to be replaced. And then when I tried to use Bugman's Glow for the same applications, I found it not really that great, because I would have to always build up. You'd never have Bugman's Glow as a finished color. Bugman's Glow is your starter color, whereas something like Rakarth Flesh or Mephiston Red, you could paint it on a model and walk away. You can't do that with Bugman's Glow. Bugman's Glow has to be your foundation, and then you just build up with Cadian Flesh Tone and Kislev Flesh. Those are your colors that you're gonna be seeing at the end of the day. So it took me a minute to wrap my head around that. Once I did, I really found that Bugman's Glow is great because it's got such great coverage. It's so, it covers so well. When you use it as a paint for a base coat, you really don't need more than one, maybe at the most two coats of it. It's like beautiful. It goes on really nicely and smooth, and I just think it's great. All the colors play really nicely off of it, so you really just build up with that with Cadian Flesh Tone. All right, everything's had a little bit of time to dry, and we're going to be going back with the Rakarth Flesh now, and we are painting, I believe, his head. So, like I mentioned, this is a character that would normally be seen as like an evil character. So we're going to be painting him up with sinister, evil skin colors and skin tones. And so we're going to start off by making him paler than normal. If we wanted him to be like a heroic, good guy character, then we would use Bugman's Glow as the base, but because this is supposed to be a baddie, he's going to be starting with some Rackard Flesh, and the Rackard Flesh really covers nicely. It's a thick base color paint, so you do want to make sure you're using that wet palette right next to you, and you're not painting straight from the pot, or else you could get some of those great details covered up too much. Like the eyes, he's got a great scowl, squinting his eyes, and he's got like the snarl to his lip and these really nice network of scars on the side of his face. Now I'm going to be using Naggaroth Knight to paint the wrapping of his chain glaive. Naggaroth Knight is a rich purple color. It's beautiful for contrasting the red and the blue. And I think if you want it to be true to what the studio paint job is on their Night Lord's Praetor, they're actually going with a more skin tone reddish brown. So I would actually use Doombull brown. It also fits the holster a little bit more. But I wanted to give my guy a little bit of class, a little bit of nobility. So purple was always regarded as like a very rich royal color in the old days, because the dye that you would need in order to create purple was very expensive to come by. So purple fabric was very expensive back in the ye olden times. So anytime I want to add a touch of class to my guys, I add some of that Naggaroth Knight. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking my stipple brush. This brush is terrific. It's great for dry brushing. It's also great for putting on an overall wash, like what I'm doing right now. I'm taking my known oil, shaking that pot up, and then applying it all over the miniature. You want to give your Naggaroth Knight a little bit of time to dry, but other than that, you've got everything on your model should be ready and workable by now. Even if you're just painting like I am, if you're following my recipe, everything that I'm painting gets a little bit of time to dry while I work on a different area, so that by the time we get to the wash, you should be ready to go. Everything should be nice and dry. Known oil is going to go everywhere, so you want your brush, in this case my stipple brush here, to spread it out. Don't just drop it onto the figure and let it drip all over the place. You want it to be put down and then spread out into all of the cracks, crevices, into where the head goes, the gorget, the shoulder armor, behind his head, right under the jump pack, and then under the arms, above the legs. There are so many different cracks and crevices and recesses. This is why having a painting handle is so important, because you can turn the model upside down, you can flip it around, you can see where every angle of the model is, and that way you can tell if the wash hasn't gone somewhere where you really need it to go. Now what I'm doing is I'm moving the wash around so that it doesn't pool in any one area. Pooling of shades and washes is the worst, because the way Games Workshop has their washes, you can't spread them out and spread them around and clean them up hours later. Once they dry, they're going to dry really, really oily, slick, and they're going to pool, and it's not going to look good. So after you give your model about a minute to really take the wash, you want to go in with your fine brush and just sop up anything that is pooling, especially on the flat armor pieces. Space Marines have lots of flat armor pieces, like the legs, the shoulder pads, and you want to make sure that you move that wash around so that there's no pooling wash anywhere on the miniature. There's nothing that says you're an amateur painter more than a pool of dried known oil or Agrax Earthshade on your miniature. All right, now what I've got is a detail brush, another one of my golden maple brushes from the set that I've got linked down below in the description, and I am painting the detail raised edges of the skin flags with Cadian flesh tone. So I'm picking up the raised edges anywhere where the fold looks like it would be catching the light, and I'm just lightly applying this Cadian flesh tone all over it. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I didn't really touch these skin flaps with the known oil. If anything, I would have gone into it with some Rakeland Flesh shade, given it some rich reddish shade, but I decided not to do that. I wanted to look pretty washed out and dry and bright. So while I was doing that, I was checking to make sure that the miniature didn't have any more pools of oil, known oil on it. and then I just went to bed. This is the next morning when we're picking back up, and you can see that the wash is dried everywhere I needed it to be. Everything is dried and ready to go. So I am just cleaning up a little bit more, moving some of the paint around. Yeah, you know, it still looks a little bright. I take it back. I think this was maybe a couple hours later. This wasn't the next morning. Yeah, see, that non-oil is still workable. So there was a little bit of a break, a couple hours. I think I watched one of the Godzilla movies with the lady boss, and then I came back at the end of the night. And here we go. This is the dried model that I came back to the next day. All right. Yeah, you always want to do that last little look-see just to make sure your model is got no dried pools or pools that are going to dry in very ugly spots. All right, I've got some Drukhai Violet now. I'm gonna be just lightly dabbing it into the facial areas. We don't want too much of it. We don't want to give him like a purple grape head, but we do want to give him some interesting looking shading and what I call bruising in his face before we add what I think is going to be coming up next, which is the Rakelin Flesh Shade. Yeah, it's very, okay, so if you're going to use Drukhai Violet, it's very tricky. You could also use some Drakenhof Nightshade. That also creates a very nice, dead-looking flesh color, very pale and bloodless. Okay, looks like before I do the Rakelin Flesh Shade, I'm going to give that Drukhai Violet a second to dry. And while I do that, I'm going to be taking my serious purple. Guys, this purple's so serious. And I'm just painting the banding here on the weapon. You know, somebody told me once that I sound like John Malkovich in these videos, and I've never heard it, but I think now I just listened to myself while I was narrating and kind of heard it. And then you paint with the serious purple. I'm not even gonna try, I'm terrible at impressions. Okay, Cadian Flesh Tone. We're going in, we're highlighting up the flaps of skin that have been bolted to his leg armor. This is still 30K, this is Horus Heresy era, so either they're not that creative with decorating themselves with the flayed skin of their enemy yet, or they're just not that lost to lunacy. But in my, I don't know if you've seen my kill team for Warhammer 40K, the Chaos Legionnaires, I bought some 3D printed third-party shoulder pads with some like literally like flayed faces stitched together and stretched out over them. Like, there are people who are designing for Night Lords, aka like evil chaos miniatures, that have some very creative designs. Like right now, this is almost like Sesame Street kind of stuff. Like the Night Lords in the future look at this and they shake their heads and they're like, ugh, amateur. All right, now we're going on to the Rakelin Flesh Shade. There's only one area on this model I'm going to be using this for, and it's for the face. If you want to give your skin flaps a little bit of depth, then you could add this Rakelin Flesh Shade to them. But anytime you use Rakelin Flesh Shade, always remember to highlight back up. It's such a dark reddish brown color that it's going to look too ruddy, especially on skin that's supposed to be flayed, dried, and stretched out and attached to your character. Just make sure you clean it up in there. There's no flesh shade in the pocket where his head would go. All right, coming back with the Mephiston Red. Man, I love the Night Lords so much. They're such a great contradiction when you think that like they weren't created evil, or were they? But in my head, the Night Lords were always created to be like the tool that the Emperor used when there was really no other alternatives. Like he would send the Ultramarines or the Dark Angels or the Blood Angels to go in and be the shining beacon of humanity, right? And to convince worlds to come to compliance. Like the Ultramarines landing in their spaceships and everything were like such a great, noble, eye-catching sight. But when he would have to break out the Night Lords, the 8th Legion was always when there was like no other alternative. And that's what I love, because like, who do you choose to be these guys when your Ultramarines, Rakarth flesh and Pallid Witch flesh to highlight up the skin as well as the bone. So like the skull and the iconography on the chest as well as the shoulder. Like, it always interested me that the Emperor had to find soldiers and legionnaires to fill this legion of his superhuman warriors. But like, you know, how did he go about recruiting for this as opposed to his Salamander's Legion, or when he was recruiting, you know, for the Raven Guard or the other good guys that you knew would be good guys no matter what? Like I said, the Ultramarines or the Blood Angels. They were always going to remain loyal, and they were always about the virtues of humanity's noble quest to conquer the galaxies and everything. Anyways, these are just some of the things I think about when I'm trying to slog through a painting sesh here. So hey, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I didn't even ask if you're working on something. What are you working on? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're painting. And if you are so inclined, I hope you join the Discord, where we've got lots of channels where you can show off your works in progress, your finished projects. We've got people painting everything from ranges for like D&D to Warhammer 40k, like everything. So hope you join along and show off your work in the community, become a part of the Warboss family. And yeah, just let me know down in the comments, what are you working on? So you really have to thin down your paint when you're going back and hitting up the head, because there are, like I said, some really nice looking scars and some really shallow areas that you don't want to get a lot of paint gunked in, right under the brow line, for example, or the cheeks down on the jawline. This is a really nicely sculpted head, despite how ugly it looks with the scarring and the scowling expression. It's a very nicely done head by Forge World, so you want to really respect all the lines, and you just want to bump them up so that we make the face a real focal point of the miniature. It helps, like I said, having a really sharp detail brush. So again, check out the description and look at those brushes, because chances are you could probably use a refresh on your brushes. All right, at this point in the miniature, I'm feeling pretty confident, pretty happy with how it's all turning out. We're coming downhill now to getting into the details, like the highlighting for the power armor, as well as the highlighting for the metal. So we're gonna start with Fenrisian Gray. Now, in my career as a painter, painting lots of Night Lords, I've always gone up from Night Lord's Blue, this dark blue. I've actually used Cantor Blue for my Night Lords before as the base color. So I've gone up to, I think I've done like Ultramarines Blue or Calidor Sky even to highlight, but it's always looked too colorful, too warm. When you use Fenrisian Gray, for the first time doing this extreme edge highlighting, I felt like my armor for my Night Lords remained cold and dark. It didn't end up looking colorful and bright, which is what I wanted. So very, very light and reserved, pulled back application. You only want to use this Fenrisian Gray like on the side of your brush. You know what I'm saying? Use that to just trace the sides of the hard outlines. Only go for like the fingers and the arm plates, anything that has sharp edges, like here, this venting for the jump pack. It's almost like a white. It's so light. It's like a very light bluish gray, and it's so perfect because it contrasts with the dark blue so well. And not only that, but when you start painting on the lightning bolts, you're going to really see what I mean, because the lightning bolts use Sotek green as a base color to trace the bright white of the actual arc, the forking lightning. The forking lightning! So when you're using this as the, like if I was just to paint the armor with no lightning, and I used Night Lord's blue, wash it with known oil, hit it with Fenrisian gray on the extreme edges, then this looks nice. This looks like a nice, dark, evil, midnight clad blue armor. When you add those bright white forks of lightning though, that's when it really comes together. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Amazon is great too. I mean, like I ordered this set of golden maple paintbrushes on Amazon just to try them out, right? Before I didn't want to like promote it to you guys. I didn't want to push it until I had it in hand myself. And it came within, I think I had like 1 day or 2 day deliveries. Like I'd forgotten that I had ordered it. And then I just saw it the next day and I was like, oh yeah, I ordered these paintbrushes. Like they arrived so fast. Now is the point when I've taken some Sotek green and I've thinned it down, and now I'm just tracing some forks from the top part of an armor plate. Like look at the shoulder right there. I started at the center and I just made a squiggly line going down and veering to the left. Then I created the fork going right. Really how you do it is up to you. You can add as little or as many of these lightning bolts across your Night Lords as possible. However, these lightning bolts are the iconic Night Lord calling card. So everyone's going to recognize them. Without the lightning bolts, if you just had this dark blue armor with the winged skull motif, you would still be recognized as a Night Lord. But there's just something about the lightning bolts that it's ridiculous that they've always been a part of it. Okay, I'm also going to link in the description a affiliate code to get a set of acryl colors from acrylic colors. What am I saying? So bold titanium white is the one that I use. It's hands down the best white paint that you could possibly use. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing covers as well as it does. When Ceramite White was out for Games Workshop, I remember Ceramite White being like comparable because it was a base color. Yeah, but White Scar, all of the other quote-unquote white paints by Games Workshop, they were all separated when I would get them. I wasted so much money cracking open a pot of White Scar, and it was all separated into like the liquid and a big dried up clump of white paint. Oh man, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies just remembering that. I don't know what's worse, White Scar paint or fine cast the product. Like it was that bad for me, my experiences using it. Like why would you release a product that didn't work? I would always have to go back to the hobby store and get my money back and be like, hey man, this White Scar. And they'd be like, oh yeah, White Scar. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? It's a piece of trash. It's like, I don't know. You gotta hope. You gotta hope that one pot will at least be good. And I was like, you son of a gun. You sold me a potato. And it was called White Scar. What am I doing? I haven't even been talking about my painting. So, been tracing the lines of Sotek green. The goal with the goal with Pro Acrylic Bold Titanium White is to paint as thin a line as possible and make it as zigzaggy and jagged and unpredictable as possible within the Sotek green. That's the trick. Then, once you paint that, you sit back, you take a look at it, and if you think, you know, it looks a little thick, it looks a little messy, it doesn't look like lightning, it looks pretty sloppy. All you have to do is take some Night Lord's blue and clean up the edges of the lightning bolt. What I mean by that is look at your lightning bolt and see which side looks better, which side looks like it's not thickly applied, which side looks more jagged and uneven and erratic. That's the side you want to keep. So you take your Night Lord's blue on your paintbrush and you slowly edge in the other side of that line. So you create a very thin lightning bolt line that maintains the quote-unquote good side of the lightning bolt, and it looks like it was like professionally done. It's gonna look really, really good. So now I added some of that bold titanium white to my Sirius purple, and I just added that to the banding there. I'm gonna take some of this Evil Sun Scarlet, gonna thin that down. You don't need any bold titanium white. In fact, if you add white to red, guess what you get? Pink. Nobody wants pink on their Night Lords, especially Night Lords. Night Lords don't want pink. So just put the Evil Sun Scarlet. And if you do want to highlight higher, what I would suggest is go into the orange-ish range. So use some Fire Dragon Bright or some Troll Slayer Orange just to mix into that Wild Rider Red. Wild Rider Red is a nice bright reddish orange. But what I'm using, Evil Sun Scarlet, is like about the very peak of pure red, where there's no orange, there's no yellow. It's just a brighter red than Mephiston, and it's perfect for highlighting the wings. All right, Runefang Steel, how you guys doing out there? Are you guys working well? If you need to, take a break, stand up, stretch, get a glass of water. Don't hit pause on the video though. YouTube likes getting long play time, so just keep my video playing in the background. You're not missing too much, don't worry about it. So we're gonna go to Runefang Steel now, and this is just highlighting up the silver and gold. Runefang Steel is so bright of a highlight for the silver, and I actually like it. I think it's a good color by Games Workshop because you can use it both to highlight up silver as well as really finely highlight the gold there. You see what I'm doing right on the edge of the shoulder pad, the gold trim of the shoulder pad with some Runefang Steel highlights just on the corner that hits the light is going to create the illusion of light reflecting off of the gold. So you're not actually highlighting the gold to be silver. Nobody explained this to me when I first started, and I'm not that smart, so I thought like I would just highlight all my gold. Like if I had a gold coin on a model, I would just highlight the entire edge of the gold coin, the entire round outline of the gold coin. What you want to do when you're highlighting gold with silver is only highlight like 25% of the gold. And that 25% should be the one that's highest and to the right. So it's the one that's facing where your natural light looks best shining on the model. That's basically what I want to say. Like I literally, like I would highlight the entire edge of like that shoulder pad or the spear tip. It would look ridiculous. Like there was a silver halo around every gold thing that I painted. And the day that I was taught what I was doing wrong was like, oh man, I feel like a total idiot now. But hey, you live and you learn. And now I've learned this great valuable skill. I'm passing it on to you so you don't have to make the same mistake and walk around with your Adeptus Custodes looking like they've got like their entire suit of armor, gold armor, like rimmed in silver. Ridiculous. All right, so I'm doing Doombolt Brown. I'm just cleaning up and bringing the color back up because of the known oil. And then I'm adding a little bit of Rakarth Flesh. And by a little bit, I mean 75% Rakarth Flesh to 25% Doombolt Brown. And I'm gonna apply it really thinly onto the edges of the holster to create the look. The intention of this look is that the leather is stretching because of the use. So it's being used so much and so well that the leather is stretching. And whether you think that's like natural Grox hide leather or human skin that's been chemically treated to be a holster for a pistol, that's between you and your emperor. I'm moving back onto, what did that say? Was that Iron Warriors or Lead Belcher? I'm pretty sure it's some kind of silver. Yeah, I mean, look at this model. I swear, once you put the highlights on and then you throw on those lightning bolts, it's really all down here from here, baby. We're just really running our wheels in place. This is my favorite time when I'm painting a model. This is the phase that I really enjoy. It's the highlighting and detail section, because now I can really take a step back. I'm not pressured into painting an entire part of the model. one of the reasons why I think so many people stop painting is because they can't get through the grind of the base coats. You know, they'll put one base coat on a miniature, and then when they have to go back and they have to do like a whole nother part of the miniature, it's like very draining. Okay, so I put the Runefang steel, that's what I did. I'm doing a dry brush now of Runefang steel onto all of the silver areas that I can reach with this dry brush. And hey, this dry brush, it's another of the Golden Maple series. I am really pumping up that product today. But why not? I mean, like, I remember being a guy that only had like one brush, and I said, oh, this brush is fine, I use it for everything. Nope, you need a set of brushes that has specific goals, you know, strengths. It has specific strengths, and each of those can be utilized. So here we go. This is a Chaos Space Marines transfer sheet. I'm picking out what transfers I want to use. So I know that there's a little bit of space on the front of the right leg armor, and there's that nice little spot right at the center of the turbine. So there are all these Nostroman runes on the Chaos Space Marines transfer sheet. Interestingly enough, if you have the Horus Heresy book, it outlines what a lot of these runes mean in Nostroman. I don't remember if this is the one that meant like territory or war, but I like the look of this rune, so we're gonna use this as the one on the center of the turbine. And then this bloody hand also has some kind of significance. I don't remember what it was, but it's not like your army marking that you would have on the one shoulder pad. It's something that's more like an honorific. So someone who's been particularly ruthless, I believe, or has been known to fight alongside a certain character. All right, so I'm using my Microsol and Microset. Gonna link those in the description as well. If you use any transfers at all, don't rely on water. Use Microsol and Microset. Use a good tweezer to hold on to your miniature. What I'm doing is I'm taking an old paintbrush and I'm just painting on some Microset onto the areas that I know I'm gonna be using the transfers on. Then I'm gonna take my tweezer. I'm gonna put the transfer into the tweezer, dip it into the Microset. By the time I get it back onto where it needs to go, I take my paintbrush and I just easily slide it off. Games Workshop makes transfers and decals that slide off so easily off of the backing paper. Forge World does not. If you've seen my Iron Hands, Iron Father video, you've seen how long it takes for that transfer to decide that it's ready to come off the backing paper. It is a chore. Whereas with the Games Workshop transfers, you literally just have to dip it into the Microset and it's ready to go. So I've got that Nostroman rune pretty much set after just a couple of seconds of maneuvering. Now I'm gonna do the same with the red hand. Take my paintbrush, just gently slide it onto the miniature. It really is great. In fact, I don't even use the Microsol. Sometimes I use both products if a transfer isn't adhering correctly, especially on a curved surface. Like right now, you can see these two surfaces are pretty flat. There's a little bit of a curve to the surface, but it's not like painting it onto a shoulder pad where the transfer is going to warp and the ends are going to be flapping up uncontrollably. So I don't even use Microset or Microsol. I'm just using the Microset because the Microset is going to soften the transfer and allow it to adhere very nicely to the miniature. If I want to later on, if I really feel like it doesn't have that painted on look, then I'll go back and I'll paint on some Microsol to dissolve the transfer and really get it stuck onto the miniature. But yeah, as it is, I'm very happy with Games Workshop's transfers. Like, they are really good. They're a really good product. The transfer itself is like a really good product. I wish they would include more things. Like, I wish it had more than just the bloody hand and a couple of Nostroman runes, but the quality of their transfer papers is really good. All right, moving on. I'm using this Geek Gaming Scenics glue for sticking on the base ready Scenic products. I've got my modeling tool here. I'm just spreading out the glue. I found this so much better than using Elmer's glue. I've used Elmer's glue for a long time, and what I found was that when you just try to put Elmer's glue onto the base, it comes on too thick, and it comes on and doesn't spread. So you really have to like add some water to it. Then you ruin one of your paintbrushes because you're using the water to mix, you're using the paintbrush to mix water and the glue. Geek Gaming has this this glue for scenery that is just terrific. And this is also a Geek Gaming product here. I think it's called like Wasteland City or Grimdark City. And it's really just rocks and pebbles, but they're very beautifully colored. I don't have to go over with a dry brush or do anything extra. If I wanted to make it look like it was out in the wilderness somewhere, I could put some grass tufts or something else, but I'm gonna leave it just with this pebbles, rocks, and dirt. And I'm gonna let it dry overnight so that it can really give me the finished look that I want. And now I've done my last looks, I've done my basing. The very final thing that I am gonna do is to put some of this very, very cheap acrylic black paint onto my wet palette. I'm gonna mix it up with some water so it's nice and workable. And then I'm just gonna paint it all the way across the rim. This is my reward for painting the model. When I get to this step, this is like the victory lap. This is when I know I finished it and the model's ready to be matte varnish, sprayed with matte varnish and put on sale for eBay. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. This is gonna be the end of this video. I'm so proud of this Night Lord's Praetor. Thank you to Mike from Hole in the Wall Hobbies for hooking me up. I love the way it looks. When it's all finished like this in the light with the light shining on it, it really does make the model look so good. Everything ties in nicely together. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you were able to get something done on your end at your hobby table. Stay tuned for more tutorials from my studio. And if you want to support me, then you can click the links below or hit the like button, leave me a comment, and maybe become a channel supporter. Thanks so much.